All right, Jamey, who are the top 3 waiver wire priorities for Week 12?
There's a lot of different ways you can go with this. I put Kenneth Gainwell at the top, then Emmanuel Wilson second, and then Michael Wilson third.
Okay, Kenneth Gainwell, Emmanuel Wilson, Michael Wilson. Dave, how about you?
Emmanuel Wilson's at the top for me. And then I've got a whole lot of questions. But if I want certainty, I want guys that I'm pretty sure are going to start this week. Michael Wilson is going to be second. Jawan Johnson's going to be third. Your top 3 may vary based on your needs, your wants, your fantasy team. This is going to be the most complicated waiver wire week of the season and the most impactful one because it's going to make or break a bunch of fantasy teams fighting for playoff spots.
So where are we, Jamey, in terms of the health of Josh Jacobs, Jaylen Warren? It's funny because you could talk about Sean Tucker. Bucky Irving might be back this week. We don't know about Marvin Harrison Jr. But just looking at Pittsburgh and Green Bay backfields, where are we there?
We're in wait-and-see mode. The report on Jacobs was that it's a knee bruise, and he potentially could play this week. My guess is they probably keep him out, but could play this week. Jaylen Warren dealing with an ankle sprain, potentially could play this week. He said he could have gone back into the Bengals game, but we know how that goes sometimes with players. And we had the situation with him earlier this year where he was trending to play in the game in Ireland and then didn't play the morning of. So they've already given us an example of one time of him dealing with an injury and then not playing him that week. In the case of Sean Tucker, you mentioned Bucky Irving could return this week. He started practicing last week, so no surprise there. In the case of Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. can return this week. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a player can come back 1 week later from, or just missing one game with an appendix situation. So there's a lot of moving parts with this. And so I think when you just look at it, like you look at, okay, who's played, who has the chance to maybe play more if the other player is injured in the case of Wilson and Gainwell. And then also just looking at some of the schedule situations, like if there's a scenario of Kenneth Gainwell being the starting running back for the Steelers, their next 3 games are great. So it could be fantastic for him if Jaylen Warren is going to miss any time. In the case of Emmanuel Wilson, I don't know if he's going to necessarily step into the Josh Jacobs role and be Josh Jacobs because this offensive line is not the same. Losing Jenkins at center, you saw it last week. It wasn't as dominant per se as it was. Now Jacobs is clearly a different player, so you're not going to worry about him as much as you might a backup. And we've seen this Vikings defense obviously play very Jekyll and Hyde in terms of how they defend the run. So for me, looking at it in Gainwell versus Wilson, yesterday, Adam, when we did FFT Express, I told you Wilson was number 1 for me, but then just sort of evaluating it, like Gainwell plays in tandem with Jaylen Warren pretty consistently. And now you're maybe giving him that role where we've seen him be absolutely dominant in that role. And so that for me puts him at the top.
Okay. So let's say we find out later today, which we won't, but hypothetically, Josh Jacobs and Kenneth Gay and Jaylen Warren are both out this week. Dave, who would you prioritize?
If they're both out this week, then Gainwell is the problem. No question about it. And we might find out that today because Mike Tomlin talks to the media on Tuesdays. So if you're not doing anything on your lunch break on the East Coast or when you get into work on the West Coast, you can find Mike Tomlin's press conference on X, and he will probably comment on Jaylen Warren. And you might say something like in his own vernacular that doesn't necessarily help us, or he might say he's unlikely to practice this week. So he's usually not, when he's not vague about a player, you can take it to the bank. When he is vague about a player, then it probably means he legitimately doesn't know. But if we learn that Warren's ankle is a problem and 24 hours after a game it could get worse, then yeah, absolutely Gainwell would be the one that I would want.
The most amazing thing with the Steelers is that's not even remotely close to their first priority this week.
Oh, with Rodgers, with the quarterback?
With Rodgers and the Jalen Ramsey, Jamar Chase situation. Like you may get 15 questions in before you hear a word about Jaylen Warren.
Sure. So Rodgers will be the story. I don't think Ramsey's getting suspended.
No. But it's still going to be
questions
the topic
about it.
That's the biggest story in the league right now. So
Tomlin will shut that down. And I promise you he'll be more vague about Rodgers unless he knows he's for sure out.
Yeah, right. So we got to see that situation. And Jamar Chase is suspended. I'm getting some questions about Jamar Chase trades. And I would say to you that if you've got a Jamar Chase manager in your league that's 5-6 or something like that, 4-7, desperate for a win, you need to go try to acquire Jamar Chase. You need to try to not rip this person off, but make a trade. And, this is like what you do when a guy's going into his bye week, but find the Jamar Chase owner and make him a trade for a lesser wide receiver. If obviously you have to be in position to be able to withstand not having Chase for a week, but this is an opportunity to have Jamar Chase down the stretch in your lineup and take advantage of a vulnerable fantasy manager.
And I don't know the answer to this. He is appealing this.
That's true.
And I'd be very surprised if he wins the appeal. Yeah. But when are they going to hear the appeal?
I believe that's today, and I believe the results could also come out today.
Then that's obviously, to what Adam said, makes 100% sense. But just in the off chance that they don't hear it this week, which I did not know, so apologize.
Don't apologize.
Then we could have this pushed back potentially.
Come on, Jamey.
No. There was a case early. It was like a month ago. I can't remember what it was right now off the top of my head, but there was an appeal for a suspension, and I think it was Jordy Nelson heard it and then immediately said, "Sorry, appeal denied. You're suspended."
All right. So
someone in the chat will remind us.
Kenneth Gainwell versus Emmanuel Wilson. Their schedules. Gainwell is so much better. Jamey was alluding to this. Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami. We're not expecting Jalen Warren to miss 4 games, but Wilson has Minnesota. They're 10th against running backs. They allow 4 yards per carry to running backs. They're inconsistent. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. The week after that is Detroit, and Detroit is legitimate. I mean, they are really good. They are the number 1 against running backs. So Wilson's got a tougher slate ahead than Gainwell if there's multi-week absences for the running backs in that backfield. Tucker has the Rams. They're really tough this week, although they have allowed a touchdown to a running back in 2 straight games. They hadn't done that all season before that. And Bucky Irving could be back as he was practicing last week. You got Zonovan Knight. That's interesting. You got Chris Rodriguez on a bye. But Zonovan Knight is a tough matchup too. Jacksonville's got a great run defense. You got Devin Singletary, but unfortunately the Giants facing Detroit this week. Detroit, again, number 1 against running backs. So it's like these and you've got Bashal Tutin. We don't know his status, but it seems like he's not seriously injured.
He said after the game that he's fine. So he spoke to the media post game, and there was one report from a Jacksonville TV station that he said he's fine. So, look, he was getting more touches than Travis Etienne before he got hurt.
It's true.
It was. They both got a lot. I think it was 15 carries for Tutin, 12 for Etienne, or 14 for Etienne, something like that. Let's call it
15 to 12.
15 to 12. Okay. So, anyway, it's really interesting because we got these really exciting opportunities for running backs, but they all could have their running mate, their starter back this week. It could be a bust. So then what do you pivot to Michael Wilson? Well, obviously there's the Marvin Harrison thing. Do you pivot to Juwan Johnson? Dave mentioned him. Before we move on and talk about Fab and all that.
There's one sneaky one, though.
Who? Who I miss?
Yoshivas.
He's had opportunities before, and I went back. I looked at the 5 games he played without T. Higgins last year, the 1 game he played without Jamar Chase 2 years ago. There've been a few touchdowns in there, but pretty much never really does anything at Yoshivas.
I just said he's sneaky. I didn't say he's guaranteed. Just sneaky.
Yeah. Is he a top 5 wide receiver to add this week?
Oh, easily.
I don't know, man. There's a bunch of other ones that I like.
Bengals are playing New England. You might want to see if Ramondre Stevenson's on your waiver wire. I think he's 89% rostered. Let's say when Marvin Harrison gets back, I asked Jamey this yesterday, I think, on the early waiver wire show. But Dave, I'll ask you, when Marvin Harrison gets back, what do you expect from Michael Wilson?
7 or 8 PPR points.
Okay. Jamey,
4 catches, 40 yards, something. I don't think he did anything in last week's game that's going to earn him a significantly higher target share moving forward. He took advantage of a favorable game script and a quarterback that just would not stop throwing. And good for him. It was a great game. And even if he did half as well, we'd still be putting him up at the top of the wide receiver ranking or wide receiver waiver rankings for this week because we don't know if Marvin Harrison's going to play.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on here. By the way, we have a show today at CBS Sports Network, 1 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully we'll have some updated information for you by then. But check it out, 1 p.m. Eastern, CBS Sports Network. At the end of the show, we'll be answering your questions. I have a tweet on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, asking for some questions. So if you want to get that in and then tune in around 12:50 p.m., we'll be answering your questions. But go ahead and reply to the tweet and let us know what's on your mind.